This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm 32 now, and I've worked night shifts as a nurse for over 5 years. Normally, I don't mind the quiet hours at work. I'm used to the emergency room. But my apartment? That was a different story. It was old, built in the 70s, with cracked walls and creaky floors. I moved there to save money while I finished my degree. I thought I could handle it. I never could have guessed what would happen. My third night shift was quiet, or at least it started that way. Later in the night, I heard a thudding noise from above me. It sounded heavy, like something was being dropped. I shook it off at first. Probably just kids, I thought. Then I heard it again, this time along with a muffled voice. It called for help. My heart dropped. I felt cold all over. I didn't call 911. I wasn't sure if I should. Was it real? The next night, it got weirder. I was in the break room, grabbing coffee, when the lights flickered. I thought it was just a power glitch, but as I stood there, I saw something dark shift in my vision. I turned. Nothing was there, just the empty hallway. My heart raced. It's just fatigue, I told myself. Get a grip. When I came home, I saw my neighbor, Mr. Clark, in the hall. He looked strange, pacing back and forth like he was lost in thoughts I couldn't understand. I hesitated to talk to him. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked. He didn't answer, but just stared blankly ahead. It made me uneasy. Each night after that, I heard sobbing. It was faint and seemed to crawl under my skin. I searched the hallways, but no one was ever there. I felt foolish looking for someone who might not exist. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? I didn't want to look crazy. One night, I woke up to a loud bang above me. I shot up from bed. I swear I could hear heavy footsteps pacing back and forth. Suddenly, I felt the urge to confront it. I grabbed my flashlight and headed up the creaky stairs. I barely made it when I froze. Someone stood at the end of the hall. They turned to face me. "Help me," they said. I blinked, and they were gone. I felt panic rise in my throat. I turned, and there was Mr. Clark whispering something in the dark. "Hannah," he said. My breath hitched. "Mr. Clark?" I called out, my voice shaking. He didn't reply. He just kept staring ahead, lost in whatever haunted him. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped. I stood there, the weight of silence pressing down. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I think I was losing my grip on reality. I never called the police. I thought about it, but I was too scared of what they might say. I still don't know what was real. The footsteps, the voice, Mr. Clark's gaze. Some nights I still hear the sobbing. Sometimes it feels like I'm the only one left in that old building. I just want to forget. The next shift began the same as the others, quiet and dark. I took a deep breath, trying to shake the feeling that settled in my bones. My mind couldn't stop running back to the figure that had whispered my name. What did it mean? My thoughts scattered every time I heard a noise. During a particularly slow moment, I decided to check my phone. The screen lit up, and I saw a notification. A message from a friend. "Hey, you still at that old place? I heard it's haunted." I chuckled nervously, but the laughter felt hollow. I wasn't in a mood to joke. Hours later, the thudding came back. This time, it surged above me like a beating heart, synchronized with the pounding of my own. I couldn't ignore it. I had to know what was happening. The hospital felt too far removed, and the weight of the apartment pressed down on me. I finished my shift, and the drive home felt longer than usual. Each streetlight flickered as I passed under it. When I got to my apartment, I noticed the door to Mr. Clark's unit was ajar. I hesitated. Should I check on him? I thought. My gut twisted, but curiosity overpowered my fear. I took a step inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was heavy, like stepping into a vacuum. I called out, "Mr. Clark?" No response. The dim light cast eerie shadows, and I could almost hear the echoes of my own voice bounce off the walls. As I ventured deeper, I spotted something on the floor, a family photo, cracked. The following night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to know more about Mr. Clark. Who was he really? What had happened in his apartment? I felt an unsettling mix of fear and curiosity that refused to let go. I decided to do some digging. After my shift at the hospital, I headed to the community center. It was a small place, but it occasionally held local history meetings.
I thought maybe someone there would know something about Mr. Clark. I parked my car and walked inside, the door creaking slightly as I entered. Inside, a couple of older folks chatted quietly. I approached a woman behind the counter and introduced myself. "Do you have any information on the residents of the old Clayton apartments? I'm curious about Mr. Clark." Her expression changed. She frowned slightly and leaned in. "Ah, Mr. Clark. A tragic story, really." I felt my heart race. "What happened?" She glanced around as if expecting someone to eavesdrop. "He used to be a teacher, had a lovely family, wife and a little girl. They disappeared years ago. It was never solved. Some say they still haunt the place." The room felt colder. "Disappeared. No one ever found them?" "Nothing," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Some people believe it's like they were swallowed by the building itself." My skin crawled. I couldn't understand why I had to be part of this, why I had to know. "What about the journal?" I asked, feeling a sudden urgency. "Does anyone know about an old journal?" She shook her head. "No journal that I know of, but strange things happen in that building. You hear noises, voices. It makes you feel uneasy." Uneasy was putting it lightly. "Thank you," I managed, feeling my heart pound in my chest. I stepped back into the parking lot, but something tugged at my mind. I had to go back. When I returned to the apartment building, it felt different, charged, like the air before a storm. Instinct told me to turn around, but I pushed my way to Mr. Clark's door once again. This time I felt a determined pull toward that journal. It had to hold the answers. I stepped inside Mr. Clark's unit cautiously. The light flickered above me, casting erratic shadows. The air was thick with that same oppressive silence. I approached the table where I'd seen the journal last, but it was gone. Panic surged. "Where is it?" I whispered to myself, hunting around the dim room. I opened cabinets, peeked under the couch, but nothing. Then my phone buzzed loudly. I jumped, nearly dropping it. A message from a number I didn't recognize appeared. "You shouldn't be here. They can see you." My heart raced. I was being watched. I spun around, looking for any sign of another presence. I grabbed the door handle, intent on fleeing. That's when I heard it. The sobbing again, clearer now. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the apartment. It felt close, intimate. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but I hesitated. Had I been brought here for a reason?
As the sobbing continued, I made my choice. I took a step back, bracing myself to investigate, even as terror gripped my chest tight. What was begging for my attention, and how could I possibly help? Something was waiting for me in the darkness, and I was about to find out what. The sobbing grew louder as I stood frozen in place. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt every instinct telling me to run, but my legs felt heavy. I took a deep breath and stepped further into the apartment, following the sound. I kept the dim light from my phone on, illuminating just enough of the room. It seemed to be coming from a small bedroom at the back. I hesitated at the threshold, heart racing, and pushed the door open slowly. The room was dimly lit, the curtains drawn tight. I scanned the space, looking for the source of the crying. My breath hitched when I saw a small figure hunched in the corner, shadowed and indistinct. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. No answer, just more sobbing. I took another step inside, illuminating the corner with my phone's light. That's when I saw her, a girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Her hair was unkempt, and she wore a dress that looked old and worn. Tears streamed down her face. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. She turned her head toward me, but her eyes seemed vacant, as if she was looking through me rather than at me. Suddenly she stood up, and the air chilled immediately. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but it sent shivers down my spine. Before I could respond, the room began to shift. Shadows danced wildly, and the temperature dropped even further. Panic surged through me. I turned to leave, but the girl spoke again, her face transforming from sorrow to desperation. "Help me find them." "Find who?" I stammered, feeling lightheaded. "My mommy and daddy," she cried, the sobbing returning with renewed intensity. "They're lost. The building, it won't let them go." The walls suddenly felt like they were closing in. A strange pressure weighed on my chest, as if the room itself were suffocating me. I backed away instinctively, grabbing the doorframe for support. I can't help you," I gasped, fighting back tears of my own. "Please," she wailed, and the shadows converged on her, dark tendrils reaching out as if to pull her back. I could only watch in horror as her form began to blur and fade away.
Then everything went dark. I stumbled, closing my eyes in fear. When I opened them again, I was outside the apartment, gasping for air, the oppressive weight lifting ever so slightly. I felt an overwhelming urge to run, but something held me there. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced to the screen. Another message. You are their only chance. If you run, they're gone forever. What did that mean? Who were they? I was caught in a web of fear, confusion, and an inexplicable need to understand. But the choice was clear now. I couldn't walk away. I turned back toward the door.
The sobbing still echoed in my mind, drawing me back into the darkness that had only just released its hold on me. I stepped back inside the apartment, my heart thudding against my ribs. The air felt thick, and the echo of the girl's sobs haunted me. I can't just leave her, I thought, squaring my shoulders. I stepped back into the small bedroom, the dim light from my phone carving out the oppressive shadows. But the girl was gone. The corner of the room where she had stood was empty. I shone the light around, hoping against reason to catch a glimpse of her, but there was nothing, just clutter and cracked walls. Panic clawed at my throat, the uncertainty churning inside me like a storm. I stumbled back into the living room. The shadows flickered, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I was still processing the girl's plea. Help me find them. Was that even possible? I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. What did she mean by the building won't let them go? My instincts cried out that I shouldn't be there, that I was meddling in something I didn't understand. Yet the weight of responsibility pressed on me. I took a breath and clenched my fists. I had to find answers. I scanned the living room for anything that might help. Papers cluttered the coffee table, and a dusty old family photo caught my attention. I picked it up, my fingers hesitating as I wiped the layer of dust away. The family, 3 smiling faces, stared back at me. A woman, a man, and the same little girl, her eyes bright and full of life. I flipped the photo over, searching for a date or a name. Nothing. Just an unfamiliar address scrawled in the corner. It looked like it came from a different time, a different place. The weight of the photograph felt oddly heavy in my hand, a tangible connection to the message I'd received. I stood there, frozen in thought, when I heard it again. A faint rustling from the kitchen. I turned sharp on my heels, heart racing. "Hello?" I called, voice cracking. There was no response, just the unsettling sound of something sliding across the floor. Against my better judgment, I moved toward the kitchen, feeling compelled. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I stepped inside. My phone light revealed a shadowy figure standing near the sink. I squinted, trying to focus. Then it moved, turning just enough for me to see that it was a small silhouette. It was her, the girl. She stood with her back to me, staring at the wall. No tears, no sound, just stillness enveloping her. "Please, don't go," I whispered, taking a cautious step forward. She turned slowly, and her expression was vacant once more. "Where are they?" I asked, desperation breaking through. But she just shook her head slowly, and a whisper escaped her lips. "You have to hurry. They're running out of time." Cold dread filled my stomach. I didn't understand what was happening, but the urgency in her voice ignited a fire within me.
I remembered the message on my phone, the hidden urgency. Suddenly, the air turned electric, the temperature plummeted again, and the shadows in the kitchen seemed to stretch toward me, curling around my legs. I felt that familiar pressure breathing down my neck. "Get out now!" a voice screamed from somewhere deep inside me, but I couldn't move. I had to know what she meant. Before I could think, the lights flickered, and then everything went dark again. My phone slipped from my grasp, and I scrambled to find it, panic rising as I realized I was once more enveloped in a void. Just me, the girl, and the silent shadows. The darkness pressed in, and from somewhere deep within, a cold voice echoed, "You must choose." The darkness closed around me, thick and suffocating. I could barely catch my breath. "What do you mean I must choose?" I shouted, but there was no reply, just the sound of my own heartbeat pulsing in my ears. Then the girl spoke again, her voice a mere whisper against the void. "The door. You must find the door." I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to flee. "What door?" I asked, my voice trembling, but she only stared at me, her expression still blank. I felt the shadows slither closer, creeping around my ankles like icy fingers. I took one shaky step back, urging my body to move, but it felt like running through molasses. Just then, a flicker of light returned. My phone. It lay on the floor, glowing faintly, illuminating a path through the darkness. I lunged for it, desperate to break free from the suffocating silence. As I picked it up, the image on the screen caught my attention. The text message was still there. "Find the door to save them." But it was the number attached to the message that sent a chill down my spine. It was the same number I had seen earlier on the apartment's walls, but in a different context, scratched deeply into the paint. I glanced toward the girl, hoping for some clarity, but she remained motionless. "I need a clue," I said, feeling foolishly brave. "A way to find the door." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes searching mine. "You see what they couldn't," she murmured. "Time is a cage." Before I could ask what she meant, the darkness shifted, constricting tighter. The shadows began to swirl, and in that swirl, I spotted something, a door frame forming from the shadows, but it was hazy, flickering like a failing light bulb. I took a step toward it, pulled by an invisible force, my heart racing in my chest. "Wait," the girl shouted, her voice more defined now. There was an urgency in her tone, but it did little to slow me down. I reached out, fingers brushing the dark wood of the doorframe that had appeared. And then, it vanished. Just like that. Swallowed back into the darkness. "No, please," I shouted, panic rising in my throat. How could I find the door if it kept disappearing? My mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle.
I felt a sudden pull, more violent this time, yanking me away from where the door had been. I stumbled back, my back against the wall of the kitchen. It was a cold surface, almost like it was alive, and my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. My phone buzzed in my hand, and I looked down, startled. The screen illuminated with a new message. "They're closer than you think." That's when I saw it, a sliver of light breaking through the cracks of the wall. It pulsed gently, as if beckoning me. I could barely breathe. It felt like the shadows were whispering, urging me forward again. I was out of time. I had to act. Steeling myself, I pushed forward, toward the light, but as I reached for it, a chilling whisper right through the air, freezing me in place. "You have to choose. Either leave or stay." With the girl's warning echoing in my mind, I hesitated, heart racing. I didn't know what would happen next, but I sensed that my choice would change everything. The light from the crack was mesmerizing, pulling me closer despite the fear gripping my chest. I could feel the shadows behind me, swirling like restless spirits, hungry for my decision. I reached out again, my fingers brushing the cool surface of the wall. With a deep breath, I pressed harder, hoping to breach whatever barriers separated me from whatever lay beyond. The moment I did, the wall shook, sending a shudder through my body. A low growl reverberated through the darkness, vibrating in my bones. I backed away, heart pounding. What was that sound? What had I unleashed? Then I noticed another flicker of movement at the edge of my vision. A line of figures formed through the shadows, each one distorted and flickering like an old film reel. They were closer now, more defined, and I could make out their features. They were faces I recognized, people I had known, friends and family. Their expressions were etched with fear, mouths moving in silent screams. I dropped my phone, the screen shattering the trance, scattering the light. I staggered backward, breath hitching in my throat, and squeezed my eyes shut, hoping I could will the images away. As if on cue, the figures vanished, leaving only the darkness behind. "Where are they?" I cried, my voice trembling with urgency. I opened my eyes just as the girl stepped forward again, her presence solidifying in front of me. "They're trapped," she said, her voice steady, though sadness lay heavy in her words. "You have to find the door to free them. They are waiting for you." "Where is it?"
I shouted at her, frustration bubbling over. She pointed toward the wall where the light pulsed. Time is a cage, but the door is set in motion. Think, when did you see the number? I furrowed my brow, recalling my earlier discovery. The number scratched into the wall. It was blurry in my mind, a hazy memory that felt like an echo rather than something tangible. It was, I don't know, before. It was just there. Exactly,
she urged, her voice growing intense. You're not just looking with your eyes, you're looking with your mind. You must remember when the door was right in front of you. Before I could respond, something shifted in the shadows again. A figure came into sharper focus, one I didn't recognize. It moved with a jarring grace, stepping out of the whirlpool of darkness. Its eyes were hollow, and its skin was a sickly gray. "Who are you?" I gasped, feeling the weight of dread in my gut. The figure only smiled, revealing sharp teeth that glinted in the dim light. "You're the one who must choose," it hissed, the air around me growing cold. "Stay with us, or leave with them." The girl's warning echoed again in my head. Which choice was right? The fear was consuming me. I felt it clawing at my insides. I looked back at the light. It flickered uncertainly. The wall was a barrier, yes, but it was also a way out. I had to make sense of it. Suddenly, the screech of metal against metal pierced the silence. I turned back to the wall, horrified, as it twisted open like a gaping mouth, swallowing the light. I had to decide, now. The door creaked open wider, and a rush of cold air brushed against my skin. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I felt anchored in place. Whatever lay beyond that opening felt like a void, dark and bottomless. "Choose," the gray figure rasped, its voice slicing through the tension. "You can't stay here forever." I swallowed hard, trying to filter my thoughts. The girl's eyes were filled with urgency, but the shadows around her tugged at me, eager to consume anything lingering too long. "I want to help them," I finally whispered, processing the loss and fear in that single statement. "Then find the door," she repeated, her tone encouraging yet firm, "before time erases it." I took a hesitant step toward the opening, thoughts racing. The number etched into the wall echoed in my mind again. Was it a hint? A trap? I couldn't shake the feeling it was key to whatever intertwined this place with the destinies of those trapped. The flickering light seemed to pulse softly in acknowledgement, urging me forward. As I leaned closer, I heard whispers behind me. I turned, half expecting to see the faces of my family again, but instead was met with a wall of darkness shifting near the shadows. I squinted, trying to make out the shapes, but they dissolved as soon as I focused. Then I felt a tugging in my shirt. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I saw the girl gripping my sleeve, her eyes wide and pleading. "You can't wait much longer." With an abrupt jolt of clarity, I looked back at the twisted opening. My hand trembled as I reached into the darkness, feeling the air thicken like molasses. I thought of the number, the one I could hardly remember. It felt like an anchor in a stormy sea. "What if I can't find it?" I gasped, voice barely a whisper. "Trust your memories," she urged, encircling my wrist with her fingers. "You have to believe."
I closed my eyes, willing my mind to reach into the fog of confusion. I pictured the hallway where I had first seen the number, how it shimmered faintly, even in the dim light. Suddenly, fragments came rushing back, a strange warmth, a fleeting moment of clarity. I blinked, pulling the fading memory into focus. The moment I opened my eyes, everything twisted. The walls began to shift again, undulating as if the world itself were breathing. The girl's grip slipped, and I stumbled forward into the widening mouth of darkness. "Wait," I shouted, panic rising in my throat. But I felt my feet move on their own, crossing the threshold. Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the corridor anymore. I found myself in a sprawling cavern, illuminated only by a faint glow emanating from the walls. The surface was etched with symbols and runes I couldn't decipher. It felt alive, pulsing in distortion like fingers tracing hidden rhythms. But I wasn't alone. Murmurs echoed across the expanse, voices I could barely understand but felt nonetheless. I strained to listen, hoping to catch one familiar word, a name, anything. Then I saw movement up ahead. Shadows danced and coiled, revealing a figure standing at the far side of the cavern. My heart raced as the realization hit me. I needed to know what was happening, to understand this moment. And yet, as I began to walk toward the figure, I had no idea if I was now lost in another trap or on the precipice of a revelation. The figure loomed larger as I approached, its shape shifting in the dim light. A sense of déjà vu washed over me. I felt like I had seen them before, but nothing clicked in my mind, just fragments of whispers and shadows. The air grew heavier, weighed down by the tension pooling between us. "Who are you?" I managed to say, voice trembling like a leaf caught in a breeze. The figure didn't reply immediately. Instead, they took a step closer, and the faint glow illuminated their features. Sharp angles and hollow eyes, a ghostly visage that chilled me to the bone. "I know why you're here," they said, voice echoing through the cavern like a distant bell tolling. The sound sent shivers down my spine, but I couldn't pull away. Something about them drew me in, held me captive. "Please," I whispered, desperate for clarity. "I need to find the door. I need to help them." The figure tilted their head, a faint smile creeping across their face, one that didn't touch their eyes. "Every door you seek has a price. Are you prepared to pay it?" My breath hitched. I felt the weight of their words as if they were tangible chains binding me to the ground. "What do you mean, a price?" "Choices and sacrifices," they said cryptically, their voice slicing through the air. I felt the shadows behind me twist, echoing the turmoil in my mind. Images of my family flashed before me, their faces full of life, filled with laughter. But those moments felt so distant now.
If there was a way to save them, I couldn't afford to hesitate. Suddenly, I caught movement in the periphery of my vision. Shapes formed among the darkness, creeping closer, whispering secrets I couldn't hear. Panic surged again. "What are they?" "Those who did not find their doors," replied the figure, their smile widening. "They linger, and so will you if you do not choose wisely." I felt my heart race at the mention of choosing. Sweat trickled down my brow. There was no time to consider. Carefully weighing decisions felt impossible in this eerie place. I threw a glance at the cavern walls, trying to focus on the symbol swirling around me, hoping they would offer some kind of guidance. Then I spotted it. One symbol stood out among the rest, pulsing with a more vibrant glow. It looked familiar, like the number from the corridor. "That one!" I shouted, feeling a surge of hope. But the figure shook their head, a sharp expression that echoed my growing dread. "Where there are doors, there are fates intertwined. Not all paths lead to salvation." I took a step back as the shadows writhed around me, the murmurs growing louder and more frantic. Fear clawed at my throat. What if I was making the wrong choice? Then everything shifted. The ground beneath me trembled, and the walls flickered, the chamber shrinking as if it were alive. I grasped the glowing symbol and felt a jolt, a rush of energy that blurred my vision. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just a path forward. This was a pivotal juncture, and every decision from here on out would come with consequences. As the cavern throbbed, I shouted into the chaos, "I will find the door," but my voice was drowned out by the cacophony. That's when I heard a piercing scream, clear and haunting, a voice I recognized. My heart sank. They were close, and time was slipping away. The scream echoed in my ears, a heart-wrenching sound that propelled me into action. The figure before me dissolved back into darkness, leaving me alone in the cavern, feeling more isolated than ever. The weight of the shadows pressed all around me, and I could sense the urgency pulsing through the air. "Help them, please!" I shouted into the void, the echoes of my cries swallowed by the thick darkness. I had to find that door. I had to save them. My heart raced as I spun around, the glowing symbol still pulsing against the shadows, beckoning me forward. I ran toward it, the fear transforming into a fierce determination. My mind swirled with images, the little girl, Mr. Clark's lost family, and my own loved ones. The shadows writhed around me, whispering empty promises and threats, but I pressed onward. As I reached the symbol, I felt its warmth envelop me. The energy surged through my body, and I was suddenly awash in visions. I saw the girl again, calling for help, Mr. Clark pacing back and forth, countless faces flickering in and out of sight, all trapped by unseen barriers, like ghosts locked in time.
"You have to choose," one of the faces whispered, sorrow etched in its expression. "Choose wisely." I stumbled back, overwhelmed, but I couldn't let it paralyze me. I was fighting not just for myself, but for everyone who had been consumed by the darkness of that building. The cavern trembled again, and the walls began shifting wildly. My heart raced as I spotted faint outlines of doors flickering in and out of existence around me, some pulsing with light, others shrouded in darkness. Each one seemed to carry a weight of sadness or hope. I felt the pull of several doors, but I couldn't waste precious time deciding. "Find the one that feels like home," I murmured to myself, steadying my breathing. Time was running out, and as I focused inward, a direction began to take form in my mind. There was one door that felt different, the one I needed to open. With renewed purpose, I dashed toward it. As I approached, the air crackled with energy. The door stood tall and foreboding, shadows dancing around the frame like angry spirits. I could hear distant cries blending with the whispers, and dread gripped me, almost tangible. But just as I reached for the handle, the figure reappeared, blocking my path. "Stop! I'm not afraid of your games," I shouted defiantly. "I'll take whatever cost it demands." The figure paused, and for a heartbeat, I thought I could see a flicker of surprise cross its ghostly face. "You truly want to save them, then?" "Yes," I yelled, determination cutting through my rising fear. "Whatever it takes." "Very well," it replied slowly, the shadows shifting ominously. "But know this, not everyone will be granted freedom. A choice must be made, and you may lose a piece of yourself in the process." The heaviness of its words settled over me, but I brushed it aside. I couldn't think of that. It was a risk I had to take. I grasped the handle, feeling the power flowing through the door. I hesitated for just a moment, a flicker of doubt creeping in, but I couldn't back down now. "I want to open it," I declared, turning the handle with trembling hands. As the door swung open, a blinding light engulfed me, erasing shadows and whispers. I stepped forward and suddenly found myself in a place that felt ethereal, like a dreamscape. Before me were the faces of those I'd loved and lost, surrounded by my memories and the warmth of their presence. They were free. Gratitude washed over me in waves, and I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Yet shadows still flickered on the fringes of my vision, remnants of the cavern lurking just outside the light. I felt a tug behind me, a shadowy reminder of what I had left. "We can't stay forever," a voice whispered, familiar yet distant. "Time is fleeting." "What's happening?" I gasped, anger and sorrow pooling within me. What is their choice?
A tear slipped down my cheek as I realized, even in this moment of salvation, there was still a price. I turned back toward the door, sensing the darkness waiting, hungry for my decision. As the bright light filled my senses, I glimpsed the shadowy figure lingering just beyond the doorframe, a reminder of the sacrifice I might never be free from. In that fleeting moment, I felt truly alive, yet I also sensed the shadows were never far. I closed my eyes, allowing the warmth and love of my family to envelop me. For every smile, every laugh that surrounded me, there was still a flicker of doubt. Would I truly escape, or had I just damned myself to the very cycle of shadows I sought to destroy? As I stood in the light, I knew I had made a choice, but I would never know where it led. I stepped into the warmth, heart full, yet heavy with uncertainty, holding tightly to the fleeting hope that one day I would understand the nature of the search I had chosen. And thus, as I finally slipped away from the darkness, I was left with the question, was I saved, or had I simply become part of the very shadows I had fought against? I still think about it sometimes, the echoes of their eyes calling me back, and the weight of choices still lingering on the edges of my mind. I wonder if the girl is still waiting, or if the building ever truly let go. But mostly, I try not to think about it at all.